Welcome back, everyone. I reviewed the OnePlus 7 Pro the first week it came out. I was lucky enough to get it, and I reviewed it and I loved it last year, and I just picked it up again. And I can tell you, this is still one of my favorite phones, and it's more to do than just basically like, oh, the cool little features here and there. It's more so to do with just how seamless the whole entire experience is. And now that this phone got the Android 10 update, I think, if the OnePlus 7 Pro, if you didn't like it back then, I'm sure you might like it now. Now, there's still some kind of strange things about it for sure, but I'm just going to look at the positives. Now, the very first thing, the price tag of this phone, even when it first came out, that was one of its highlights because it wasn't selling for $1,000, even though it was pretty much a flagship phone. It was selling for noticeably less, and right now you can pick one of these up on Amazon for less than $500. I've seen many for $450 to $480, which is an extremely cheap price to pay for a phone like this. If you think about it, phones like the iPhone 11, which is really the cheapest offering that Apple puts out right now, is selling for $699. The Samsung Galaxy S20, which is technically the cheapest one right now, is selling for $999 or $899 if you don't get the 5G variant. But this one is selling for $450 to $480, less than $500, which is a really, really good price to pay for a phone like this. I mean, you're getting a ton of cool little things. And it's a lot of money, but still, for a very good phone, that's really not that much. Now, the other thing, when I was messing around with it, the performance of this phone is still top tier. It still opens up things extremely fast. Multitasking is pretty decent, and I even had the base model too, which doesn't have that much RAM, and it was able to handle everything I threw at it for the most part. Really, whatever I was going to do with it, playing games, multitasking things, whatever, it was basically, on par with a lot of my newer phones. And I believe I did a speed comparison between the OnePlus 7 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S20, and even though the S20 was faster, I think the 7 Pro was literally right behind it every single time. So for sure, I can tell you the performance of the OnePlus 7 Pro is still up there, man. It's still a very, very good performing phone at the end of the day. Now, the third reason, and this is one of my favorite things about the OnePlus lineup of phones, they literally have some of the best softwares out of any devices I've ever seen, and I think it's better than stock Android, to be honest, which it's like stock Android with more features built in, which is really, really cool. And I'll be honest, now that we're on Android 10 and even Android 11, there's a lot of cool features that stock Android is bringing that might even, give OnePlus a run for their money. But the Oxygen OS, which is, just like I said, stock Android, it doesn't really take up a lot of background processes. It's not a whole like redesign of the software or anything like that. There's a couple things that are changed here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much stock software, and that's something that I really, really do like about these phones. And the OnePlus 7 Pro still has that software. And what's really cool is they extend their software on their phones for a pretty long time too, which is really cool. So if you get this phone now, you're still going to get a couple years of software support, which is pretty decent. And for an Android phone, that's really, really amazing. So the software, I don't think out of all the OnePlus phones I've owned, I never had random crashes or glitches for the most part. For the older phones, I'm expecting it to be a little bit slower here and there, and that's fine. But with the OnePlus 7 Pro, it's still up there, and the software is one of the things that make it just that much better. So Oxygen OS, I love you. Keep being awesome. Now, the fourth reason, and this is going to end up being way more reasons than just the ones I said, but that 90Hz refresh rate that it brought last year was really, really awesome. Even though right now we do have 120Hz refresh rate, I still think the 90Hz on the OnePlus 7 Pro is really, really cool. And, I want to see, like, I've seen them back to back and seen them compared and everything, and there may be like a little bit of difference, but I think going from 60Hz to 90Hz is a bigger upgrade than going from 90Hz to 120Hz, to be honest. And you're still getting those really, really cool little graphics and everything, and the smoothness when you're going from one app to the other, and it's a really, really cool little experience. So if you've never seen that before, I would recommend doing it because it's hard to demonstrate over the camera because these videos are at 30 frames and it doesn't really downscale that well or upscale or whatever. But that 90Hz refresh rate that this phone has is really cool, and that's something that not all phones have anymore either. So maybe in the next coming up, months and years, maybe they'll bring it, but this is a really, really cool thing that these phones brought. Now, another cool thing, as you guys know, the OnePlus 7 Pro had a very large screen with a very little bezel around the whole entire body, and it didn't have that camera hole. It had that pop-up camera, which is another reason why this phone is really cool. And with that, you're able to play games and, have that whole entire screen. And there's still a little bit of bezel, but it's so small that you guys probably don't even care. You had that edge type of display, which is really cool as well. And when you held this phone in your hand, when you were maneuvering through it, it literally felt like an amazing phone. Like, it did not not feel like a cheap phone at all, and it wasn't a cheap phone, you know, even in the price tag, it was still pretty expensive. But with that very low bezel, when you would whip this phone out, that's something that, you know, a lot of phones, even back last year, it still had a little bit of bezel on it, you know what I mean? Like the S10 still had a little bit, iPhones obviously, and this phone with removing that camera notch, it just really added so much appearance value. I think that I can, you know, like stunning value or like flexing value. It just looked so cool. And the pop-up camera was something that I think is cool, but you know, OnePlus is going away from that now, so it kind of makes sense. But I think it was really cool at the end of the day. Another thing, pretty good battery life on this phone as well. If you're planning to take it with you for a pretty long time, I'm sure you can get multiple days out of it if you kind of, you know, turn off that 90 hertz and, you know, kind of plan out your usage a little bit better, but still had pretty good battery life in it. And also you have that inbuilt fingerprint sensor in the display. And even though we had that on the S10 last year, that was still pretty cool to see it on a cheaper phone of that value too. So those are just a couple reasons why I would recommend buying a OnePlus 7 Pro in 2020. Like I said, links will be down in the description if you want to pick one up. You can help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.